I think probably a good share of the people in this room, anyone who was really involved in Long Island Sound the past 1, 2, 3, 4 decades plus, probably met Art, probably heard him at a meeting, saw his passion for the Long Island Sound. So we thought it was really appropriate to dedicate this summit to Art. And Art passed away at the end of March at the age of 82. And I'm sure, again, many of you have your own reflections and old memories. We can probably have a parade of people come up and give stories of Art. I remember some meeting where Art came up. And I have no doubt Art would be here today. He'd be standing off to the side, probably standing off by the back, maybe munching on a muffin with his coffee. And he would be thinking, and he'd be questioning, and he'd be challenging every word that was said here. And I think, in some sense, he's still here, either in spirit or, as I believe, at least in his legacy and his influence among many of us in this room. You know, Isaac Newton was able to see beyond the frontiers of science by standing on the shoulders of giants. So is the environmental movement, built upon the foundation that established by others. And Art really was part of that foundation of the environmental movement. He started laying his own bricks, and some of us knowing Art might say throwing them might be more appropriate, more than 45 years ago. So what did he do? Well, just go back in time, before the Clean Water Act. There's no Clean Water Act as we know it today. Pollution in our waters was flagrant. Existing laws were laxly enforced. In 1966, a new organization, the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, decided to go after the polluters of the Hudson River with the only tools at hand, which were 2 federal laws. One passed in 1888, the New York Harbor Act, and the other in 1889, the Federal Refuse Act. And both of those were really charged more with trying to keep our waters open for navigation and commerce, and specifically for pollution, but they did prohibit dumping of materials in both the New York Harbor and in waters nationally. And there was a key element in both of those laws that said that 1/2 of any fine collected in enforcement was to be paid to the person or persons giving information which shall lead to conviction of this misdemeanor. In other words, the public had a role. And if there were fines, a public entity or individual would share in the settlement. Art Glowka was the director of the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, a former Eastern Airlines captain, Navy veteran, outdoors rider, passionate recreational fisher, and even former Brazilian diamond miner. So he had an interesting and storied life and career. But Art really believed that pollution problems could be licked if the general public were made aware of the rewards of that were ordered by law. And the general public had a critical role in identifying pollution problems, alerting authorities, and advocating that cleanup be carried out. He originated a bag of polluter, prepaid postcard that could be filled by citizens and reported to the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, and then report that onto the Army Corps of Engineers for enforcement. As retold by Robert Boyle, who was co-founder of the Fishermen's Association. This was a 1970 Sports Illustrated article. As you can imagine, the follow-up reports by authorities, and at the time, again, the Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers was the responsible entity, was less than satisfying. And that angered Boyle, got him frustrated. Art Glowka was, in contrast, attracted by the challenge. He loved a challenge. And he started knocking on doors and visiting headquarters. And as told by Boyle in the article, he said, among other things, he was curious to find out about any polluters the Corps had taken action against. But he was informed that all the data on polluters was stored on tape. When he suggested the retrieval of the data would answer his questions quickly. After all, that's why the government uses computers. There was much hemming and hawing, but no retrieval of data. On another occasion, after Glowka was told he could not get certain information from the Corps, he showed up with a copy of the Freedom of Information Act, passed by Congress. On another occasion, he had to write the White House to get permission to inspect some documents. So this was Art at his best, being persistent, asking questions, demanding accountability from the laws that were passed, and demanding enforcement about those actions. Again, this was really the origins of the environmental movement and much of what we take for granted today. This leads me just to two concluding observations about Art. First, he was an environmentalist really born out of the 60s. So his distrust of government and bureaucrats and so-called experts, he was equal opportunity in that way. He doubted everyone, questioned everything. It was learned. It was not innate. It was from his experience. It was born out of those days, and it was his response was the necessary and correct response to those times. He'd been given the runaround. He'd heard double talk too many times. So his skepticism and combativeness was the right prescription for the time. So before we criticize his style and his attitude, again, as I said, as many of us know here, which could be combative, we should remember from whence it was born and recognize that it was accompanied also by a deep belief in the wisdom of ordinary citizens and their right to demand that government be responsive and effective. The second really important point is that there was no bigger fan of Long Island Sound than Art Glowka. He told me once that as an airline pilot, he could fly anywhere. He could fish anywhere. He was a passionate recreational fisherman. But he said, given his brothers, he'd rather fish in western Long Island Sound. He thought it was the best place on earth, in his mind, to go fishing, to recreate, to boat. And so he was driven by this deep sense of conservation of this place that he loved, he cared deeply for, and not for his own benefit, and in his own time, but really for future generations. And he told me once, I used to want to catch a lot of fish. Then I just want to catch big fish. Now I just want there to be fish. That was a perfect expression of the pure conservation ethic and what really, really drove him. So he continues passion for Long Island Sound right to the end. He was still attending Long Island Sound meetings, reading everything in the scientific literature, commenting, debating, questioning, pushing, always asking for more because he cared so deeply about it. And so again, I think it's completely appropriate that we dedicate the memory, this conference to the memory of Art Glowka.